Hi y'all, it's JoJo. Welcome back and welcome aboard to those of you who are just finding us. Now, before we get started today, I need y'all to buckle up, because this case, it's more screwier than a screen door on a submarine. We're talking about Jake Mitchell Haro, a man who's now facing 25 years to life in prison for the murder of his 7-month-old son, Emmanuel. But here's the thing that will get you hot under the collar. This ain't Jake's first rodeo, not by a long shot. And when you start looking at the pattern, and hun, there is a pattern, you start wondering, is Jake Haro a monster, or is he a man who keeps taking the fall for the women in his life? Now, I know that's gonna probably ruffle some feathers, but this ain't just another story. It's a tangled web of marriages, abuse, and what I reckon is some downright calculated manipulation. We'll unpack Jake and Rebecca Haro's timelines, their rocky relationships, the kids caught in the crossfire, unfortunately, and my theory on why Jake might be trying to play the system like a fiddle to shield Rebecca, only to turn around and cry foul later. We will also look into some other theories that are floating around out there, and you can be the judge on what you think might be the reason why Jake has pled guilty with no apparent advantages. So stick with me. This is going to be a long one now, but by the end of this video, you're going to see what I'm seeing, and it ain't pretty either way. Hi y'all, and welcome back. And if this is your first time here, welcome aboard. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and make sure that you end up turning your bell notifications to all. That way then you don't miss any of my upcoming videos as I put them out. And if you wouldn't mind, please like this video. And if you feel that it's shareable, please share it with everyone you know. And leave me a comment down there. I do read all my comments. So let's get started.
The content you are about to watch contains the subject matter of a real-life true crime event. Therefore, it is not suitable for all ages and is only intended for adults.
First off, let's meet Jacob Mitchell Haro, which he goes by Jake now. I don't know if it's actually been legally changed, but all the docs actually have him as Jake. Born February 9th, 1993. He's 32 now, standing 5'10", 210 pounds, with black hair and eyes. By 2014, Jake's already diving into marriage number one, Isabel Gonzalez. They tie the knot, but it crumbles about 2 years later. Custody fights drag on till 2019, and just this August 19th, 2025, Isabel files a DV restraining order against him for her and their son, EH. Y'all, that's red flag number one in a pattern of volatile relationships. Then comes marriage number two, Vanessa Avina, aka Vanessa Haro. They wed sometime around 2017. Exact date is real fuzzy, and I could not officially find anything tangible. Just speculation based on information in the bankruptcy docs that I ended up finding. But they do have a son, Jake Jr. His name has legally been changed, though. They also have a daughter, Carolina, born late July or early August 2018. And folks, this is where things turn darker than a moonless night. So let's roll back the clock to October 2018. Jake Haro is living in Hemet, California with his wife, Vanessa. They're married. At the time, they have a brand new baby girl. We're going to call her Carolina, though the court documents refer to her as Jane Doe or CH. She's 10 weeks old. 10 weeks old. Now, on October 12th, 2018, something unthinkable happens. Carolina ends up at Hemet Valley Hospital. And y'all, the injuries this baby has, I can barely get through reading this list. She had one acute fractured rib, meaning brand new, just happened. 9, yes, I said 9 ribs with healing fractures, meaning this had been going on for a while. A skull fracture, a brain hemorrhage, swelling of her neck, and a fractured leg bone that was already healing. This wasn't an accident, y'all. These are horrors no child should ever have to endure. This was ongoing abuse of a 10-week-old baby. Just let that sink in for a minute. And while you do that, let's watch this clip from the press conference where Riverside DA Mike Hestron talks about this case.
In 2018, Jake Haro with his ex-wife, there's another child who they were prosecuted for child abuse as well, child neglect, cruelty. That child was also an infant, and that came to the courts, arrested in 2018. It came in to the courts in 2023. We had charged various felony crimes, child abuse, child cruelty, and our indication or what we wanted out of the case was prison. We believed it was a prison case and that Jake Haro should have gone to prison. Jake Haro pled straight up to the court, which sometimes reporters get this wrong, and you call it a plea bargain. Judges are not allowed to plea bargain. Defendants can plea bargain with the prosecutor, but when a defendant pleads up to the court, they plead to everything that they've been charged with, and they're essentially throwing themselves on the mercy of the court. In this case, a judge here in Riverside County, happened to have been a visiting judge from San Bernardino County, gave Mr. Haro a suspended sentence, which means that instead of sending him to prison, he chose to give him probation and suspend prison time sort of over his head, meaning that if he violated his probation, he would then go to prison. My prosecutor in the courtroom objected to that and said on the record, we object. We think it's a prison case. You should send him to prison. And the judge decided, as is the judge's right to do in that case, he decided that Mr. Haro deserved an extra break and gave him probation and basically 180 days of work release, which ends up being like community service. I will say that it was outrageous, an outrageous error in judgment by this judge. And I don't have any problem saying that. I'm not attacking the judge personally. That decision was absolutely outrageous. Mr. Haro should have been in prison at the time that this crime happened. And if that judge had done his job as he should have done, Emmanuel would be alive today. And that's a shame, and it's an outrage. And I hate to say that, but when our criminal justice system breaks down, I'm going to just call it like it is and tell you it broke down. It's not how it's supposed to work. The judge had obviously meant well. At the end of their sentence, he told Jake, I'm giving you a big break today. Don't mess it up. But I want to point something out to you. I want to read to you the injuries. The child's name is Carolina. She's still alive today, but she is permanently bedridden. She has permanent damage, cerebral palsy, that is a result of long-term child abuse. I want to read to you the injuries that were presented in court to this judge at the time of that previous prosecution. Acute fracture of the posterior left rib, fifth rib, healing fractures of the posterior lateral 6th, 7th, and 10th through 12th ribs, healing fractures of the 6th and 9th through 12th ribs, partial bone fracture of the skull, brain hemorrhage, significant prevertebral soft tissue swelling of the neck, and a healing tibia fracture of the right leg. This is severe abuse for an infant. And so whatever you think of the criminal justice system and people need a break, someone who does that to a child belongs in prison. Period.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. According to the arrest warrant, Jake claimed he noticed Carolina was running a slight temp of 99 to 100 degrees, which, I mean, by medical standards, that's not even a mild fever. But hey, some parents do get nervous about temps in babies. I was one of them when my boys were little. This was after Vanessa dropped him off at home, and he says he gave Carolina Tylenol, then decided to give her a bath in the kitchen sink. Jake said while holding her, quote, to let the water rinse off of her, end quote, she slipped out of his hands and fell into the sink. He said the left side of her chest hit the center divider of the sink, but did not notice any signs of injuries. He said that he told Vanessa what happened when she returned home 40 minutes after dropping him off. Y'all, I have boys who were babies once upon a time, and you'd know immediately that something's wrong. But Jake says he couldn't detect any injuries? A skull fracture, brain hemorrhage, multiple broken ribs, and he couldn't detect any injuries? Jake claims he went to bed around 9 or 10 p.m. on the night of the 12th and didn't wake till Vanessa woke him in the early morning hours of the 13th to feel the baby's back. And he felt something crackle, quote unquote. Crackle, y'all. That's bones. That's broken bones in a 10-week-old baby. According to Vanessa, she took Carolina to the hospital round about 4 a.m. on the 13th due to her not nursing. After a forensic search on Jake's iPad, there was a search found that was timestamped October 13th, 2018 at 1:19:58 a.m. that read, quote, "Is it hard to feed an infant with fractured ribs?" End quote. That's where his story starts shifting. he essentially throws Vanessa under the bus, claiming she has access to the iPad and account on there, and that it wasn't him using the iPad at 1 a.m. on the 13th. Well, anyone can read between them there lines. Then Jake goes in voluntarily on June 18th, 2019, to speak to the detective and says, quote, "If you ask me, do you see her doing this? 8 months ago, I would have told you no way. If you ask me now, it had to have been her." End quote. Speaking about Vanessa, of course. So both Jake and Vanessa get arrested. They're co-defendants. They're both charged with felony child abuse. And then nothing. Absolutely nothing. For 3 years. This case just sits there. The wheels of justice are apparently stuck in some serious mud. They must have buried it up to the axles. Finally, in June 2023, 5 years after Carolina was hospitalized, they have a settlement conference. And this is where the pattern starts, y'all. This is where you gotta pay attention. June 8th, 2023. There are 2 hearings that day. Same courthouse, same judge, same victim, but 2 very different outcomes. Now, just a quick note here. If you want to see the transcript for this entire hearing, I broke it down into 2 videos, which I will link in the description for y'all to watch after this video. I also have videos going over Jake's court records for this case and all the motions, continuances, etc. that happen along the way that I will link as well. Fair warning though, if you're anything like me, have that stress ball handy, because this case will get you madder than an old wet hen. Now, let's get back to the hearing. Morning session. Vanessa Avina walks in. She's out of custody. She's been out this whole time. She's got private counsel and she's pled guilty to, wait for it, a misdemeanor. They reduced her felony charge down to a misdemeanor under California Penal Code 17B, as in boy, which I explained in that other video I was just talking about, where we go over the whole hearing. She gets 4 years informal probation, meaning no probation officer, 120 days on weekend work release, which is essentially like a weekend community service, some child abuse classes, which she has already started and was almost finished with, actually, and a $150 fine. That's it for a baby with 9 healing broken ribs, a skull fracture, and permanent brain damage. Afternoon session. Now it's Jake's turn. And hun, his outcome is very different. Okay, y'all, I just ended up coming across something that caught my attention while I was in the process of editing this video. I hadn't quite caught it before this, and I am kicking myself in the ass right now for not catching this before. However, instead of making an even longer video and include it in here, I ended up stopping work on this video and made a real quick about 10-minute video to go over what I ended up finding. So I will link it down in the description box. I ended up finding out that in the court transcript where the judge talks about Jake's guilty plea, he mentions one word in particular, the agreement. So was there an agreement made between the judge and Jake prior to the actual plea being recorded? Because if so, from my understanding, that's not how it's supposed to work. You'll have to watch that other video. I do go into it and I do some research on it. I am not an attorney. I am not giving any legal advice whatsoever. I would really appreciate an attorney to step up or somebody in the legal field that would be able to give me actual real advice on this, because I am extremely curious. But no legal advice here, just speculation on my part. this judge may not have only made an extremely poor judgment, in my opinion, but that he may have actually broke the law. But we're going to go ahead and get back to what we originally planned out for this video. Jake pleads guilty to felony child endangerment, not a misdemeanor, a felony. And he gets the upper term of 6 years in state prison. But, and here's the kicker, the execution of that sentence is suspended. He gets formal probation for 4 years, 20 hours community service through a nonprofit, 180 days weekend work release, which, like I said before, is just basically community service that is done on the weekends, and it is typically only given to less severe non-violent offenses such as DUI or certain misdemeanors. So how did he get it? But anyway, I digress. Plus, he was eligible for halftime, meaning he only had to do 50% of the work release and all the same classes and requirements. But here's what you need to understand. Jake now has a 6-year prison sentence hanging over his head. One violation, just one, and he goes straight to prison for 6 years. No trial, no nothing, that's it. Or at least that's how it should be, but stay tuned. The judge even says to him, I got the transcript right here, quote, I want you to let that sink in for a minute. I just sentenced you to 6 years in state prison, end quote. And here's the kicker. The DA objected to Jake's plea. The prosecutor wanted Jake to go to prison right then and there. They didn't want him getting probation at all, which I, for one, completely agree with. But Vanessa, the DA didn't object to her misdemeanor plea. She sailed right through. So we got Vanessa goes first, morning session, gets misdemeanor, informal probation, and the DA doesn't object. Jake goes second, afternoon session, gets felony, formal probation with a 6-year suspended sentence, and the DA objects, but judge allows it anyway. Same crime, same victim, same day, same judge. So why do you think they got two very different sentences? Let me know down there in the comment. Oh, and one more thing. During Jake's sentencing, he mentions he hasn't seen his kids in almost 3 years. That part of the hearing got my blood boiling faster than lighter fluid thrown on a bonfire. But you will have to watch my video on the reading of the transcript to learn why. And you want to know what happened to Carolina? That beautiful baby girl. She's alive, thank the Lord, but she's permanently bedridden. She has cerebral palsy from the brain injury. She'll never walk, never have a normal life. And both her parents just walked out of that courtroom on probation. Now, you'd think after getting that kind of second chance, a suspended 6-year prison sentence hanging over your head like an anvil waiting for Wile E. Coyote, you'd walk the straightest line in the history of straight lines, right? Wrong. Jake can't stay out of trouble. June 27, 2024, Jake gets arrested again, this time by Banning Police Department. The charges? Felon in possession of a firearm, prohibited person possessing ammunition, and violation of probation. Y'all, one of the conditions of his probation was he couldn't have any firearms, ammunition, or weapons. It was right there in black and white. And what does Jake do? Gets caught with guns and ammo. But that's no issue for Jake. He just bails out the same exact day he's arrested and does not spend even 1 day in jail. Now here's what's interesting. Back at his 2023 sentence, sentencing, Jake admitted in open court that he owned firearms and was ordered to surrender them by July 2023. There was even a special Prop 63 hearing to make sure he complied. So either, 1, he didn't turn them all in, 2, he got new guns after being ordered not to, or 3, both. Either way, his probation then gets revoked on August 9th, 2024. That 6-year sentence is now very real and very possible. Yet he was allowed to stay out on bail. Hearings dragged to 2025, trailing his other cases. This man's disregard for rules is as plain as day. This is another part of the case that had me spitting nails. But in the process of them dragging their feet, once again, Emmanuel is born and then disappears. Now, let's back up a bit. It's 2021. He gets married again. Wife number 3. Her name is Rebecca Renee Haro. Maiden name Bushhausen. Born February 3rd, 1984. She is 41 now. 5'1", 160 pounds, brown hair and eyes. No priors in Riverside, but her family's got shadows, and we will dive into those in a little bit. Rebecca's got an ex-husband. His name was withheld from the media, though, who told media he didn't even know she'd remarry or had Emmanuel. They allegedly shared 2 kids. Rebecca's a mom of at least 3 children beside Emmanuel. 2 children over 18 from before, the 2-year-old with Jake, and possibly others, and just rumors and speculation at this point only. The toddler, though, we do know ended up going to CPS after the arrest. Now, where the toddler ended up going from there, there's still a little bit of speculation on that as well. Some say that the toddler's in the same custody as Carolina is, but that's just speculation at this point because I don't know 100% for sure. I haven't seen anything official. But y'all, this woman has more secrets than a locked diary, and she ain't spilling. And here's the thing. Rebecca knew. She knew about Jake's child endangerment conviction when she married him. In a Jailhouse interview, she straight up says she was, quote, aware of his previous child cruelty case, end quote. But she married him anyway. And she told reporters Jake was, quote, a good dad, end quote. And their relationship was, quote unquote, wonderful. Y'all seeing any red flags yet? Because I'm seeing a whole parade of them. Now, Jake and Rebecca, they have 2 kids together. A daughter who's about 2 years old when this all goes down, and a baby boy named Emmanuel. Emmanuel was born around December 2024. Although I personally have not seen any confirmation yet as to his actual date of birth, I gathered this information from a secret audio recording that a neighbor did while talking with Jake and Rebecca after Emmanuel's disappearance. The neighbor mentions something about December towards the end of the recording, and you hear Rebecca in the background.
December, that's when like it's cold, you know?
Then the recording cuts off. And according to the DA, from day one, Emmanuel was being abused. The prosecutor later says, and I quote, baby Emmanuel endured ongoing abuse that ultimately took his life, end quote. Ongoing abuse, just like Carolina. But we don't know about any of this yet because on the surface, everything looks fine. Rebecca's posting on social media, they're a happy family until August 14th, 2025. August 14th at 7:47 p.m., Rebecca Haro calls 911 from the parking lot of a Big 5 sporting goods store in Yucaipa, California. She tells police that Emmanuel has been kidnapped. She says she left Jake and the other kids at a park. One of them had football practice. She drove to Big Five to buy a mouth guard. She's in the parking lot, notices Emmanuel needs a diaper change. So she parks and lays the baby down next to his car seat. Nothing unusual here, right? Then she hears someone say, "Hola," and bam, she gets knocked unconscious. When she wakes up, she's on the ground and Emmanuel is gone. Now, right away, this story's got problems. She's got a black eye, clearly got hit, but security footage, witnesses, evidence of this mysterious kidnapper, nothing. But at first, nobody knows that. So there's this massive search effort. Helicopters, canine units, search parties. Emmanuel's face is all over the news. The whole 9 yards. And Jake and Rebecca, they're giving interviews. They're making public pleas. "Please bring our baby home." Rebecca's crying on camera. Not very well, I may add, in my opinion. Begging the kidnapper to return Emmanuel. However, I personally did not believe the kidnapping story from the very start. I always felt that something just didn't feel right to me. How about y'all? Let me know down there in the comment box. But here's what we know now that we didn't know then. The DA believes Emmanuel was red-rummed between August 5th and August 14th. That's a 9-day window. So when Rebecca is making that 911 call on August 14th, Emmanuel's probably already gone and has been for up to 9 days. When they're making those tearful pleas on TV, they know there's no kidnapper. And here's the kicker. Multiple people report that Rebecca went to the same Big Five location days before she reported the kidnapping. She allegedly told the employees her car had been burglarized and asked if they had security cameras. She was scouting the location, y'all. August 18th, investigators served search warrants at Jake and Rebecca's home in Cabazon. Cadaver dogs, forensics teams, the whole works. They interview Rebecca, confront her with inconsistencies in her story, and Rebecca, she refuses to keep talking, just shuts down, won't cooperate anymore. August 22nd, exactly 1 week after the kidnapping report, Jake and Rebecca are both arrested and charged with red rum. The DA makes an announcement. Quote, "It is believed Emmanuel is deceased and the search to recover his remains is ongoing." End quote. Translation, there was no kidnapping, the baby's expired, and his parents did it. Now, they try one more time to find Emmanuel. August 24th. They take Jake in handcuffs in his red jail jumpsuit out to Highway 60 near Gilman Springs Road in Moreno Valley. Cadaver dogs, detectives, the whole team. Jake's there, he's watching, but they don't find Emmanuel. And to this day, Emmanuel's body has never been recovered. That baby boy is still out there somewhere. Now, here's where this case takes a turn nobody saw coming, and it involves a leaked jailhouse confession that might explain everything about why Jake pled guilty. But first, I gotta explain what a Perkins operation is for those who don't know. A Perkins operation, named after the Supreme Court case Illinois v. Perkins, is when law enforcement puts an undercover informant, usually another inmate, in a jail cell with a suspect. The informant gains the suspect's trust, gets them talking, and the suspect, not knowing they're talking to law enforcement, confesses to the crime. Now, this is legal. The Supreme Court says so, but it's also controversial, real controversial, because some people see it as trickery, manipulation, violation of the spirit of the right to remain silent, even if it's technically legal. But if you want a more in-depth explanation, I did a deep dive on this topic recently, and I will leave a link down in the description box for y'all. Now, according to leaked information, law enforcement did exactly this to Jake Haro. August 27, 2025, reporter Brian Enton, y'all might know him from News Nation. He's covered some major cases. Post on his YouTube channel that according to his sources, Jake Haro told a jailhouse informant that he red-rummed Emmanuel and put him in a trash can in his house. In the trash, y'all. Like garbage. That precious 7-month-old baby allegedly thrown away like trash. Now, Brian Enton said this Perkins operation happened after Jake allegedly told law enforcement that he rolled over Emmanuel while sleeping. And when he woke, he realized Emmanuel was not alive. And then he panicked and buried him. He didn't have access to the sealed documents. He just said his sources told him this is what Jake confessed to. So let's watch a couple of short clips from that video, and I will be posting a link to the video so that you can watch it in its entirety later if you want.
Sources say that Jake Haro told a fake inmate in the jail that he killed baby Emmanuel and put the baby in a trash can in his house. You might be wondering how police got this information. This is part of what I'm told is called a Perkins operation. This Perkins operation came after, I'm told, Jake Haro confessed to police that he rolled over in bed and killed the baby by accident and then buried the baby. So that is what Jake Haro told police, which is why he took police to that spot out along the freeway. This video that we have that shows him out there searching. That story, I'm told police believe, was all made up. First, they got that story. Then they decided to do the Perkins operation, I'm told. Meanwhile, baby Emmanuel's mother, I'm told, is still sticking to the same story. They also did a Perkins operation with her in jail, and she is standing by her story that baby Emmanuel was kidnapped. That is also, you'll remember, what she told a reporter who she talked to in jail. I'm joined now by Kim Dagonia, a former Riverside County prosecutor. Thank you for joining me again, Kim. I want to start with this new reporting that we have, that Jake confessed to police that he rolled over the baby, killed the baby, and then buried the baby. But apparently that story was not true, right?
Yes, that is correct. My inside sources are telling me that was absolutely a lie. He made that all up to the police in order to, I guess, garner some type of sympathy, garner some type of a linear charge or sentence, but he made up this entire fabricated story that he was asleep with the baby Emmanuel, that he rolled over onto baby Emmanuel. When he woke up, he realized the baby was dead and he panicked. And so he went out to the Gilman Springs area that we saw him with the police the other day, and he buried the body because he wanted to have the opportunity to go back and mourn his son's death and visit him. That was his story. That's why he was out there in his chains and his shackles, allegedly trying to lead the police to the body that was never there.
So this was a fake inmate who he told reportedly that that he killed baby Emmanuel and then put baby Emmanuel into a trash can. It sounds like this could be very difficult in terms of finding his remains.
Yes, that's the sad part of all of this. That is correct. He did confess to these, we will call them fake inmates, that he did kill baby Emmanuel and that he threw him in the trash can at his home. Approximately a week before Rebecca Haro even stated that the baby was missing. So baby Emmanuel's been missing for quite some time. And as a result, Waste Management, from my understanding, has told the sheriff's department it would be nearly impossible to determine which Waste Management truck took the trash, which bin it was in, and which landfill this particular trash can would have gone to, making it almost impossible that we will ever find baby Emmanuel's body.
So this Perkins operation with the fake inmate did that happen after, I'm assuming, the after he lied to lied and said that he buried the body?
Yes.
Okay, so that was really just a wild goose chase out there.
It was 100% a wild goose chase, from my understanding. It goes to show you Jake Haro's mental status, right? The level that he will go to not only kill an infant, but the great lengths he will go to cover it up and create this fabricated lie. Such a fabricated lie that he allowed investigators to participate in something that's not ordinarily done, which is basically taking a field trip out to a fake crime scene. I mean, he created all of that in his mind, knowing it was a lie, knowing it was fake, and lived out the entire lie for the next 24 hours with law enforcement. That's pretty intense.
And then we've also reported that Rebecca Haro, that there was also a Perkins operation with her. So a fake female prisoner, and that she has been sticking to her original story, which is similar to what she said to the reporter from the newspaper who got through to her, that, you know, that there was this, essentially this kidnapping and that they don't know what happened. It's kind of interesting that that she's sticking to the original story, and it sounds like he's, you know, not.
Right, that's my understanding. She is sticking to the story that somebody stole her baby and she wants him to be brought home.
And here's where this gets messy. The same day that Brian Enton released this information, law enforcement held a press conference and denied that Jake had made any confession. They said, and this is interesting, they were getting, quote, some level of cooperation from the suspects, end quote. Did you catch that there? Plural, suspects, but that nobody had confessed. So which is it? Did Jake confess or not? Put your thoughts down there in the comments. What do you think? Well, another reporter, Garrett Hoddle with KESQ News Channel 3, he posted on social media on October 17th, the day after Jake's guilty plea, that he spoke directly to Riverside County DA's office, and they confirmed that a Perkins operation was conducted, but the details are sealed because Rebecca's case is still ongoing. So what do y'all think about that one? Why do you think that it's sealed, being that if it was only on Jake, then he's already pled guilty? There's no reason to keep them sealed, right? We're gonna get into this a little bit later, but go ahead and put your thoughts down in the comments for me now and let me know what you think at this moment. So let's break down what we think we know. A Perkins operation was conducted on Jake, confirmed by Riverside County DA's office to Garrett Hoddle. The details of what Jake said are sealed. That's official. Brian Enton's source says Jake confessed to unaliving Emmanuel and putting him in the trash. That is unconfirmed officially, though. Law enforcement intentionally denied any confession or operation took place at the press conference that same day, and law enforcement said they were getting cooperation from suspects, plural. So was Rebecca cooperating in some form or another too? Now, there was also rumors, according to Brian Enton's sources, that they tried a Perkins operation on Rebecca too, but that she stuck to her kidnapping story and didn't confess anything. So we probably will never see those those documents anyway because nothing came of it. So they're not even going to let anybody even know it happened, more than likely. That's just my opinion, though. Now, if, and this is a big if because we don't have the sealed documents, but if Jake really did confess to a jailhouse informant that he red-rummed Emmanuel and put him in the trash, that explains several things. Number one, why Emmanuel's body hasn't been found. If he was put in a regular trash pickup, he's probably in a landfill by now, mixed in with tons and tons of garbage. Sorry, this is just really hard. These are things you don't even want to think about. A place where a little 7-month-old baby should be. But they've searched the desert, they've searched highways, they've searched remote areas. But if he's in a landfill, it's going to be nearly impossible to recover him. Emmanuel could be anywhere. Number two, why Jake pled guilty when he did. See, a jailhouse confession to an undercover informant is devastating evidence at trial, if it is admissible. That informant can get up on the stand, testify under oath exactly what Jake told him, describes Jake's demeanor, his words, his attitude, and the jury hears it all. That's basically game over. But here's the thing. If Jake pleads guilty before trial, that informant never has to testify in open court. The confession never becomes part of the public record. The details stay confidential. So one theory is, once Jake found out about the Perkins operation, whether his attorney told him or if he figured it out when Brian Enton reported it, he knew he was cooked. He knew there was no way he could win at trial with that confession hanging over his head. So on October 16th, 2025, Jake pleads guilty, takes the possible 25 to life before it gets worse. And then there's number three, why Rebecca's case got delayed, just got continued to January 21st, 2026. That's a 2.5 month delay. Why? Well, if there's a Perkins confession, Rebecca's attorneys need to know, what exactly did Jake say? Did he say, I unalived Emmanuel? Or did he say, we unalived Emmanuel? Did he mention Rebecca? Did he take full responsibility? Or did he implicate her? If Jake implicated Rebecca in that confession, that's evidence the DA can use against her at trial. But if Jake said he did it alone and Rebecca didn't know, that actually helps her defense. So Rebecca's attorneys are waiting. They want to see what Jake says at his sentencing hearing on November 3rd, whether any of the Perkins operation details become public, whether Jake reveals Emmanuel's location, and what the judge says when sentencing Jake. And then they'll decide, does Rebecca take a plea deal or does she go to trial? But here's where I'm going to throw y'all a little curveball with my theory. What if Jake wanted to get caught by the Perkins operation? Now hear me out. Perkins operations are controversial. There's a whole legal doctrine called the Messiah Doctrine that deals with when the Sixth Amendment right to counsel attaches and whether certain confessions should be admissible. There's also arguments about whether Perkins operations violate the spirit of Miranda rights, even if they're technically legal. So what if, and I'm just throwing this out there, but what if Jake is playing a long game here? What if he's setting up grounds for an appeal down the road? He confesses to the informant, knowing it's an informant. Then he pleads guilty before trial. Then later, after Rebecca's case is resolved one way or the other, he appeals his conviction based on either the Perkins operation was improper, his attorney was inefficient for not challenging it, he could say the confession was coerced or obtained improperly. Maybe he might even go after a Messiah violation if they can argue one. And if his appeal is successful, his conviction gets overturned and he gets out and it's done. Now, do I think this is likely? Probably not. These These appeals are hard to win, but is it possible? Yeah, Jake's already shown he's willing to play the system. He pled guilty in 2018 and then later called it a financial decision that was forced on him. He knows how to work angles. And in my opinion, he just seems like a manipulator. And if he is protecting Rebecca, which I still think is possible, this could be part of that strategy. Take the fall, set up grounds for appeal, and if Rebecca walks, maybe he fights his conviction later. Now, I gotta be clear. We don't have the sealed Perkins documents. We don't know for sure what Jake said. Brian Enton's source could be right, could be partially right, could be wrong. We wouldn't know until those documents are unsealed, if they ever are. But the fact that law enforcement confirmed a Perkins operation happened, even though they denied Jake confessed, that tells me there's something there. Something significant enough to seal. Something that's not gonna matter for Rebecca's case. And that's why her attorneys are waiting. Alright, so let's step back and look at the big picture here. Because there's a pattern. And patterns don't lie, y'all. So let's first go back to Carolina's case, 2018. Do a quick recap. Both parents charged as co-defendants. Vanessa goes first, morning session. Vanessa gets misdemeanor, informal probation, 120 days work release, $150 fine. The DA does not object to Vanessa's plea. Jake goes second, afternoon session. Jake gets felony, formal probation, 6 years suspended sentence, 180 days work release. DA objects to Jake's plea, but judge allows it anyway. Result, the woman went first and got the better deal. Now let's go into Emmanuel's case here in 2025. Both parents charged as co-defendants. Jake goes first, October 16th, 2025. Jake pleads guilty, faces possible sentence of 25 years to life in prison. His sentencing is on November 3rd, which is coming up this Monday. Rebecca goes second and delays her case until January 21, 2026. Rebecca has not pled guilty and maintains her innocence. Rebecca's attorneys have 2.5 extra months to strategize. Results, the man went first this time, but the woman gets time to see the outcome and strategize. Now, the order flipped between the two cases, but the result is similar. The person who goes second has more information, more time, more ability to craft their strategy based on what happened to the first person. See, in 2018, Vanessa went first. She got her deal done in the morning before Jake could say anything that might implicate her worse. She got out ahead of it. In 2025, Jake went first, but Rebecca's attorneys were smart. They didn't have her join Jake's plea. Instead, they delayed her case so she can see what sentence Jake gets on November 3rd, hear what Jake says in his allocution, which is his statement to the court, learn if any Perkins operation details become public and what was said during the operation, find out if Jake reveals Emmanuel's location, assess how harsh this particular judge is, and decide whether to take a plea deal or go to trial based on all that evidence. That's strategic. That's some smart lawyering, y'all. And that gives Rebecca a huge advantage that Jake doesn't have. Jake went second in the first one, but goes first this time. And extremely fast, in my opinion. But it gets even more interesting when you look at Rebecca's background. Rebecca's maiden name is Boyshausen. Her brother, James Boyshausen, in 2017, just 1 year before Jake's first child abuse case, James red-rummed his girlfriend, Jalen Amanda Keith, in Palm Springs, California. And how'd he do it? He staged it to look like a suicide. He knocked her unconscious, put her in a bathtub, shot her in the forehead, and used a shower curtain to shield himself from blood spatter. Cold, calculated, and staged. He got 50 years to life in prison. And you know who defended him the whole time? Who created a Justice for James Boyshausen Facebook group? Who insisted he was innocent? James's and Rebecca's mama, Mary Boyshausen. Now, 8 years later, Rebecca's charged with red rum. And how was it staged? As a kidnapping, another false narrative, another cover-up, another staged crime scene. And who defended Rebecca to the media before she got arrested? Who told reporters, quote, "They're not gonna hurt that baby," end quote? That's right, you guessed it. Mary Boyshausen, Rebecca's mama. Same woman who defended her son, the murderer. So did Rebecca learn from her brother's case? Did she see how he tried to stage it and think, I can do better? Did she plan the kidnapping story? Or is this all just terrible coincidence? Now, to be frank with y'all, I really do not believe in coincidences, but what do y'all think? Let me know down there in the comments. Now, let's talk about Jake's plea, because this is where it gets real interesting. October 16th, 2025, Jake pleads guilty to first-degree red rum, child endangerment, and filing a false police report. He is now facing 25 years to life in prison. At a minimum, he won't be eligible for parole until he's almost 60 years old. And don't forget, he still has that 6-year suspended sentence hanging over his head from Carolina's case too, being that he also pled guilty to the firearms and ammunition charges on the VOP. We will just have to wait to see what the judge does with those extra 6 years. And this was a plea to the court, meaning it wasn't negotiated with the DA. The prosecutors didn't offer him a deal. He just pled guilty. Why would Jake do that? There is no benefit there for him, or is there? So let's move on to some different theories here. Theory number 1, he's actually guilty and just he couldn't handle the guilt no more. Maybe. But if that's true, why wait until October? Why not plead guilty right after he got arrested in August? Why give all those jailhouse interviews declaring Rebecca's innocence? Why go through 2 months of preliminary hearings and court dates just to plead guilty anyway? It just doesn't quite add up to me, and based on his past, I don't see it. What do y'all think? Now, theory number 2, the Perkins confession. He got caught. This is the theory most people are running with. Jake confessed to a jailhouse informant, found out about it, and knew his goose was cooked. So he pled guilty to avoid having that confession aired out in open court at trial. This makes sense. Jailhouse confessions are powerful, and if Jake really did say he put Emmanuel in the trash, that's not just a confession. That's details. That's knowledge only the red rummer would have, which is also known as guilt knowledge. That's devastating at trial. So Jake cuts his losses, pleads guilty, takes 25 to life before the DA can push for life without parole based on that confession, or possibly even tack on more charges such as desecration of a body, perhaps. Now, this is plausible. This makes sense legally and strategically. But how much does Jake know about what they have on him from the Perkins op? Since it was leaked, has he already seen the discovery on the op? Or would he just be guessing as to what they actually have? What do y'all think? Let me know down there in the comments. Theory number 3, he couldn't afford to fight it. This is what Jake himself has claimed in the past. Now, in his jailhouse interviews, he said the 2018 plea was a financial decision, said he was sick of court, said no one would believe my side of the story anyway. And look, I get it. Public defenders are overworked. Private attorneys, they cost a fortune. Jake filed for bankruptcy in 2018. He's got judgments against him. Money's tight. I completely understand financial distress, as I am sure most of us out here do too. But then again, we ain't committing a crime crime this horrible either. But here's the thing. He wasn't even at trial yet. Just preliminary hearings. He could have fought this. The DA might have a strong case, sure, but they don't have Emmanuel's body. That makes it harder to prove cause of expiration, time of expiration, and exactly who did what. So why give up before the fight even starts? What do y'all think? Let me know down there in the comments. So now we move on to theory number 4. He's protecting Rebecca. Now, this is my theory. I know this is going to be controversial, but hear me out. Let's look at what Jake said in that Jailhouse interview on August 28th. He straight up declared Rebecca innocent. His exact words. While they're both sitting in jail on the same charges, facing the same evidence, he says she's innocent. Why would he do that unless he's trying to protect her? Or she truly is innocent and it was all Jake? But think about it. Rebecca has no prior criminal record. Jake already a convicted felon. Rebecca is the mother of their 2-year-old daughter. If both parents go to prison, that little girl's got nobody, although, to be perfectly honest, would Rebecca really be a good parent for this little girl, being that even if she's not guilty, she still stood by while Jake sat there and did horrible things to Emmanuel, her own child? Jake's already facing potential prison time from his 2024 firearms violation. He violated his probation. That 6-year sentence, remember I talked about that earlier, from 2018 could be reinstated anyway. And that is a whole nother can of worms. He actually should have been in prison, and Emmanuel would probably still be alive or would possibly have never even been born. If Jake takes full responsibility, maybe Rebecca walks. Maybe she gets probation. Maybe she gets a reduced sentence. Maybe the 2-year-old gets to have at least one parent. But like I said before, I personally do not believe that parents should be Rebecca anyways. I personally don't believe that it should be either one of those parents. Regardless, that child needs to be put into a loving home with 2 parents who love that child and actually care for that child and would do anything to protect that child from anyone. And here's what makes me really wonder. Jake's guilty plea was to the court. It wasn't negotiated with the DA, meaning the DA didn't offer him a deal. He just pled guilty on his own. Why would you do that unless you're trying to protect someone? If Jake was just scared of the Perkins confession, he could have negotiated with the DA. Maybe something like, I'll plead guilty if you reduce the charge, if you agree to 20 years instead of 25 to life, if you take life without parole off of the table. But he didn't. He just pled guilty to first-degree red rum. Full stop. That doesn't sound like someone who's scared. That sounds like someone who's made a decision. Now, here's where my theory gets even more complicated. What if Jake is protecting Rebecca and setting up an appeal and manipulated the Perkins operation? What if it's all 3? And what if Jake confessed to the informant knowing it was an informant, gave him the trash story to accomplish multiple goals, give the law enforcement something so they think they're getting cooperation, provide details that are impossible to verify because, unfortunately, Emmanuel's body is gone, set up grounds for a future appeal based on Perkins' operation being done improperly, take full responsibility to help Rebecca's defense, and create a narrative where he's the bad guy and Rebecca was just a victim of his manipulation. What do you guys think? Do you think, is Jake smart enough to do all that? Because I don't know. But he's shown he can play angles. He knows how to work the system. And if he is that strategic, then we're all underestimating him. Now, here's what we're waiting for. November 3rd, 2025, which is this Monday coming up. Jake's sentencing hearing. And y'all, this is not a done deal yet. Jake pled guilty, yes, but he hasn't been sentenced. The judge still has discretion here. Jake could get, best case scenario, 25 years to life, eligible for parole around age 57. Worst case scenario, life without the possibility of parole. He ends up dying in prison, no chance of ever getting out again, which in my book would be the best case scenario, but that's just my opinion. The judge will consider aggravating factors, which these actually make the sentence worse. The victim was particularly vulnerable, being Emmanuel was only a 7-month-old baby. His prior conviction for child abuse, which was Carolina's case, and we've went over that. The violated probation in 2024 for the firearms and ammo. Alleged ongoing abuse per the DA at the press conference on August 27th. He participated in a cover-up, which was the false kidnapping report. Emmanuel's body has never been recovered yet, which that suggests no remorse. He made public pleas knowing baby Emmanuel was expired. That shows deception. And he possibly confessed to putting baby Emmanuel's body in the trash. And that's only if the Perkins details come out and Brian's sources were correct. Now, mitigating factors, which actually can make the sentence lighter. He put in an early guilty plea, which that saved court resources. So now there's no trial needed, which also saves the family trauma. And if he reveals Emmanuel's location, that will show cooperation. Also, too, if he shows genuine remorse in his allocution statement, and also if he takes full responsibility and doesn't blame Rebecca, that could also help. Now, the allocution is going to be critical. This is where Jake gets to speak directly to the judge. And he can express remorse, explain what happened, apologize to Emmanuel's family, and the big thing that we all really want to see happen, because this baby deserves it, is he could reveal where Emmanuel's body truly is. But then again, even if he did reveal it, would any of us really even believe him? What Jake says or doesn't say on November 3rd will affect whether he gets 25 to life or life without parole, whether Rebecca decides to take a plea deal, whether Emmanuel's body is ever found, and the public perception of both defendants. And Rebecca's attorneys are going to be watching real close, because if Jake gets 25 to life, the lighter sentence, Rebecca's team might think, this judge is reasonable. Maybe we take our chances at trial. Or, even with a prior conviction, Jake only got 25 to life. We can do better. Now, if Jake gets life without parole, Rebecca's team will think, this judge is not playing around. We better negotiate now. They'll probably push Rebecca hard to take a plea deal. Now, if Jake reveals Emmanuel's location, that puts massive pressure on Rebecca, because now body equals forensic evidence, and that equals harder to deny involvement. And you know the DA will use the recovery of the body to push for a harsher sentence for Rebecca too. Now, if Jake takes full responsibility and says Rebecca knew nothing, Rebecca's defense gets ammunition. Even the co-defendant says, I wasn't involved. But DA will argue Jake is lying to protect her. So that really could go either way. Now let's talk about Rebecca's strategy, because this woman is playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. Her preliminary hearing was was originally set for October 29th, but then it got continued to January 21st, 2026. That's almost a 3-month delay. Y'all, that delay tells us everything about her strategy. So what's Rebecca's team doing during those 3 months? Well, they're gathering intelligence. What sentence did Jake get? What did he say in his allocution? Did he reveal Emmanuel's location? Did any Perkins operation details become public? How harsh is this judge? What's the public reaction? Is the DA's case getting stronger or weaker? Then they're going to be making decisions. Does Rebecca take a plea deal? If so, what terms can they negotiate? Or does she go to trial? What's her defense strategy? Does she claim she was abused or manipulated by Jake? Does she stick to the kidnapping story, or does she just blame Jake entirely? Remember back in 2018, Vanessa went first and got a better deal. But her attorneys didn't have the luxury of waiting to see what happened to Jake first. In 2025 now, Rebecca's attorneys learned from that. They're letting Jake go first, watching what happens, then deciding their strategy. That's smart, in my opinion. That's calculated. And that gives Rebecca a massive advantage. And here's another thing. Rebecca has a better legal team than Jake. Jake's got public defenders. They're working hard, don't get me wrong, but they're overworked and underpaid. Any public defenders are. Rebecca, though, she's got a law firm over there in Riverside. One specific one, Jeffrey George Moore, who is a private counsel. And don't forget Rebecca's brother, James Bushausen, got 50 years to life for red rumming his girlfriend and staging it as a self-harm. Rebecca watched that whole case unfold. She saw her brother go to prison. She saw her mama defend him. She learned what not to do. James made mistakes. His staging was sloppy. He got caught. Rebecca had the blueprint of what doesn't work. Did she use it to plan better? Now let's take a look at her kidnapping story. Now it had a public location, witnesses, cameras, which actually the cameras actually hurt her in the long run, a visible injury, which the black eye, proof of attack, kinda, a plausible motive, random kidnapping for maybe ransom, trafficking, who knows, and a sympathetic victim, a worried mother. But it also had inconsistencies that investigators caught almost immediately. Advanced scouting of the location where she was allegedly going in and asking about cameras at the very location that she ends up claiming this kidnapping happened. There's a 9-day delay that don't make any sense, and there's no real actual evidence of a kidnapper. So did she plan it, or did she panic and make it up on the spot? That's what a jury's gonna have to decide if she goes to trial. Now, before we get to my final thoughts, let's talk about all the questions we still don't have answers to, because this case is more full of holes than Swiss cheese. Let's start with Emmanuel. Where is Emmanuel's body? What was the actual cause of expiration? When exactly did he expire? We have a 9-day window, August 5th through the 14th. What day even? Was it a single incident or ongoing abuse like the DA ended up claiming in the press conference? Was he alive when put in the trash, or was he already gone? Could he have been saved if someone had called 911 sooner? Now, what about the Perkins operation? What exactly did Jake say to the informant? Did he mention Rebecca? Did he take full responsibility, or did he implicate her? Are there other details we don't know yet? Which I'm pretty sure more than likely, being that California has just completely shut everything down as far as docs go. They have made everything confidential. They even made it to where there's things that we were able to see on their website before that you can no longer see. They completely revamped the docs website. It's just so minuscule, the amount of information that you can even get off of the website now, where I was getting the docs. Was there a Perkins operation on Rebecca too, which there was the rumors that we talked about? And then if so, what did she say? The rumors say that allegedly she stuck to the kidnapping story, but we still don't know for sure because there's nothing official. They won't release anything yet, which in a way that I can understand because her case is still ongoing. But in the same token, if she didn't actually say anything and she stuck to the original story, then why not just come out and say that? I don't understand why they would have to be so secretive about that. Why not just come out and say, yes, there was an operation performed on Rebecca as well, but she just stuck to the same kidnapping story, so no harm, no foul. What about Rebecca's role? Was she present when Emmanuel was harmed? Did she participate or did she just fail to protect? Which there's a lot of debate on whether or not she should still be held at the same accountability level if all she did was just stand by and not do anything. Why the 9-day delay before reporting? Was she really scouting the location days before? What were the specific inconsistencies in her story that made investigators suspicious? I can tell you my opinions, and right off the bat, I can tell you just her demeanor to begin with. You get that sixth sense, you get that feeling. You could tell she wasn't being truthful. You could tell she wasn't being real. When did she know Emmanuel was gone? Now, what is Jake's strategy? Is he really protecting Rebecca? Is he setting up an appeal? Was his confession to the informant intentional manipulation? Will he testify at Rebecca's trial? I mean, you got to remember, too, they're also married. So you can't force a spouse to testify against another spouse. So he can't be forced to testify against her. But there's still that question of, will he testify against her? Will he testify at her trial, period? But then still, will he testify against her? Or will he testify for the defense? Will he reveal Emmanuel's location at sentencing? And I think we all pretty much hope that he does, because that little baby boy deserves to be laid to rest properly. And y'all, these questions, they matter, because a 7-month-old baby is gone, allegedly without a trace. A 2-year-old lost her brother and both parents. A 7-year-old little girl is permanently disabled because of what Jake did in 2018. This ain't just about legal strategy and court games. This is about children, innocent babies who suffered and expired at the hands of a monster, in my opinion.
There is absolutely nothing, no crime more important than the injury of a human being, particularly a child. This was preventable in numerous ways. The amount of response we have had from the public, the enormous anger that a child was not only originally thought to be kidnapped, but then presumably murdered, kind of warms my heart a little bit, that there is compassion still out there. There is care about other people. There is, people actually do care about other people. There is absolutely nothing worse than harming a baby. Broken bones, injuries, life-altering trauma. And had that case been successfully handled how it should have been, Emmanuel would still be with us today.
All right, now, y'all, it's time for me to lay out my theory a little more in depth before I do go. And I want to be clear. This is speculation based on patterns, court documents, and publicly available information. Now, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but here's what I think is happening here. I think Jake is protecting Rebecca, but, and this is important, I don't think he's doing it out of love. I think he's selfish, personally, myself, and I think Jake is a manipulator. I think he's learned over the years how to work the system, how to play angles, how to set up situations that benefit him later. Look at his pattern. 2018, he initially blames Vanessa, then he takes a plea and gets probation instead of prison. Then in 2023, he calls his guilty plea a financial decision and claims he was forced into it. Then in 2024, he violates his probation, but somehow he stays out on bail instead of going straight to prison for those 6 years, which is what he should have done. Now brings us up to 2025. He pleads guilty fast, declares Rebecca innocent, possibly confessed in a Perkins operation. Every time he's playing an angle, every time there's a strategy in place. So here's what I think is really going on. Phase 1, you got the crime. I believe both Jake and Rebecca were involved in Emmanuel's unaliving. Whether it was ongoing abuse that went too far or a single incident that turned fatal, I think they both knew. I think they both participated in the cover-up, and I think they both lied about the kidnapping. Phase 2, you got the cover-up. Rebecca stages the kidnapping. Maybe she learned from her brother's mistakes. Maybe she thought she could pull it off, but her story has inconsistencies. Investigators catch on, which they did fairly quickly, I might add, and both get arrested. Then you got phase 3. The strategy. Here's where it gets interesting. I think Jake and Rebecca made a plan. Jake takes full responsibility. He pleads guilty first. Then Jake declares Rebecca innocent. This gives Rebecca the best chance of walking or getting a reduced sentence. This keeps their 2-year-old from losing both parents. Although I've already made my opinion known about her even having just one of those 2 parents as a parent. And here's the manipulation. I think Jake is also setting up an appeal strategy. He's playing the long game here, y'all. And that brings us into phase 4, the appeal, which will be in the future, of course. Once Rebecca's case is resolved, whether she pleads out or goes to trial, Jake can then appeal his own conviction based on improper Perkins operation, ineffective assistance of counsel, coerced confession, new evidence maybe, whatever else his attorneys can come up with. And here's the kicker. If Rebecca gets acquitted or gets a lighter sentence, that actually helps Jake's appeal. He can then argue, the jury found reasonable doubt in Rebecca's case based on the same evidence. Or what about, if there was reasonable doubt for her, there should be reasonable doubt for me. There's also, the state's case was weak. Rebecca's acquittal proves it. Or what about, my confession was coerced because I thought protecting Rebecca would help our daughter. Here's a really good one for you. I only confessed because I was told Rebecca would walk if I took responsibility. That's coercion. Now, if Rebecca gets convicted too, Jake could argue, we were equally culpable, but I got a harsher sentence. That's unjust. Or what about, the state used my confession against me, but gave Rebecca a better deal despite equal involvement. One last one. My plea was based on the understanding Rebecca would be treated fairly. She wasn't, so my plea should be void. Either way, Jake has an angle. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. Maybe Jake is generally remorseful. How many of y'all believe that one? Maybe he really did act alone. Do any of y'all believe that? Maybe Rebecca truly didn't know. Raise your hand if you think that one is true. Maybe the Perkins confession is legit and Jake just cracked under pressure. That one I think could be plausible. But when I look at the pattern, when I see how this mirrors 2018, When I see Rebecca's family history, when I see the strategic delays, Jake's history of blame shifting and manipulation, I just can't shake the feeling that there's something more going on here than meets the eye. And here's what really bothers me, y'all. While all this legal maneuvering is happening, Emmanuel is still out there. His little body hasn't been found. His family hasn't been able to lay him to rest. That baby's last resting place might be in a landfill somewhere, mixed in with garbage. No one deserves that. That ain't justice. That ain't right. And somebody knows where he is. So now, where does this leave us? Dates to keep in mind: November 3rd, 2025. Jake gets sentenced. We'll see what he says. We'll see if he reveals Emmanuel's location. We'll see if he shows remorse, or if he continues to play games. January 21st, 2026. That's going to be Rebecca's preliminary hearing. Will she take a plea? Will she go to trial? Or will she finally tell the truth about what really happened? Now, sometime in the future, maybe Emmanuel's body is found. Maybe we get answers, and maybe justice will actually be served. But right now, we got a pattern. We got two, one expired and the other permanently disabled babies. We got a man who keeps taking pleas and claiming he's a victim. We got a woman whose brother is a convicted red rummer and who's allegedly staged another crime. We got legal strategies and manipulation and games being played while babies are in the ground or the trash. And that makes me madder than a wet hen in a thunderstorm. So I'm going to keep watching this case because Emmanuel Haro deserves justice. Carolina Haro, which her name has been legally changed, but I'm choosing in this particular video, we'll use her birth name. Carolina Haro deserves justice. Those babies deserve better than the adults who were supposed to protect them. What do y'all think? Do you think Jake is protecting Rebecca? Do you think he's setting up an appeal? Do you think they're both guilty? Or do you think Jake acted alone and Rebecca really is innocent? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and ring that notification bell so you don't miss when I cover Jake's sentencing and Rebecca's case. Also, don't forget to check out the other videos I've already done on this case, including deep dives on the court documents, the Perkins operation legal issues, and the twists and turns along the way. I'll drop a link to the playlist in the description for y'all to make it easier for you to find them all. And as always, thank you everyone for all of your continued support. It means the world to me. Now y'all stay safe out there and hug your babies extra tight tonight. And remember, justice might be slow, but it's still worth fighting for. And until next time, y'all, bye-bye.